So what is the best way to transport your Warhammer miniatures? Time for another Wonders of discussion. Nick speaking, and welcome to this video. Right, today I want to have a chat about storing your Warhammer models. Before that though, if you would like to keep up to date with the wonders of Warhammer 40k, then please give me a sub and hit the bell button so you don't miss an upload. Okay, so storing your miniatures. This is something that we all have to consider when purchasing our models, and it can be anything from a cardboard box to a very expensive custom case. But what is the best way to store our miniatures? And that is what I want to discuss in this video. So I'm going to have a chilled, relaxed chat to share some of my tips and tricks and some of the cases that I use. And hopefully we'll get a discussion in the comments below where you can all share your experience too. Now, when I first started thinking about the topic of this video, I was trying to rack my brains about how I stored my miniatures when I first started out. And I have to be honest, I can't actually remember. I think I just had them sort of on a bookshelf until I bought my first case. Now, the first case that I bought wasn't actually a Games Workshop case. So my first case that I remember purchasing was for my Necrons, and I remember I wanted a big case because at the time I had quite a big collection, and that's why I was racking my brains. Like, what did I store these in before I got this case? And I can't remember, which is annoying. But anyway, I bought this big case. I think it was called a Battle something case by a company, as I said, is no longer in existence, but they were in the UK, and these cases used egg foam in them, and it seemed to match my Necron army really well. I could easily fit the models in there, and they were very well protected. And I think that's one key thing about the actual foam itself inside. It does depend on the armies that you have, the type of models that you need to store. But this particular egg foam I found really good for my Necrons, and the case was so big that I was easily able to cut the foam into sort of the right positions as such for the different units, etc. Now that case is now totally filled. In actual fact, I've got other cases for my Necrons as well where I've got so many models. But from that particular case, which I really liked, I also bought a smaller case, a skirmish case I think it was called, and that originally was for my Space Wolves. However, I now use that for my Tyranids. And the great thing about Tyranids, especially plastic models, whether you've got loads and loads of little plastic models, is you don't necessarily have to put them in individual foam. You can literally just put them into a tub. In actual fact, that's what I do with my Tyranids, because they're plastic, and also because of the paint scheme. I mean, if I was to get a little chip on there, my paint scheme is so simple I could easily touch it up. However, all the metal models I do individually put into the case so they don't rub against each other. But there are certainly some models, probably orcs would come into this category, plastic orcs anyway, where you could literally just put them into a box and it would be absolutely fine for them. And you could line the box with bubble wrap, or even using the polystyrene chips maybe to protect them a little bit more if you were inclined. But definitely don't rule out a box. And indeed, I've seen some people that actually use like a box with magnets on, so you actually have trays where you can magnetise your models onto the tray so they don't actually touch each other. That certainly is one option if you're willing to put the effort in and magnetise all of your models. Now, moving on from this, once the company that I was getting these model cases from was no longer in existence, I then started to look at Games Workshop cases. And the Games Workshop cases I also have had great success with. I'm really happy with them. That is the old cases. We'll talk about the new one in a second. But the old cases with the little compartments in seem to work really well. I did buy some of the small ones, but ultimately the big cases I think were much better because you could just get more in there. The little case may be okay for just going to an event somewhere where you maybe don't have a whole army in there. But I think if I had a choice, I wouldn't buy little cases anymore. I'd just get the big double cases. I think they were much better. So I've got a few of those in my collection, which is really nice. Of course, they're not exactly cheap. However, I think it's probably worth investing in a case to some degree, because after all, we want to keep our models safe, assuming you're not just putting them into an ice cream tub and you're happy with that. So it really depends upon the army, I think, more than anything, and the type of person maybe that you are. maybe some armies you might care about more than others. It's like I would never put my Necrons in an ice cream tub.
Necrons!
But the Tyranids, I don't really mind. Now, of course, you generally always run out of room in your cases. And my Eldar army, for example, I've got a big case, I've got a small case. It's not enough room. My flyer is in its own cardboard box with foam, like a dedicated box that I just made myself, and that goes into a separate box. I've also got an old camera case, an aluminium camera case with the dice foam in, and I put my Wraith Knight in there and a few other, my Wraith Guards and a few other bits and pieces in there. My Shadow Spectres are in there. I've actually got them standing up because they are quite fragile. I wouldn't want to lay them down. So again, it really does depend on the models, on the type of storage that you go for. Now, I've never had a custom built case, either a case which is dedicated to a particular army, so you might have like Land Raider spaces and Marine spaces, or indeed I've even seen people where you take your models and they actually cut the foam out specifically for the models. Now, I've never done that, and there's several reasons for that. I suppose the main reason is cost, because obviously doing that, it is quite expensive, but also down to the fact again of expanding armies. Most of my armies, apart from the Dark Eldar, I do plan on expanding even more, and I'd hate to have a custom case that's like, right, done and dusted, that's my case, and then I buy some more models and now they don't fit in the case, then I've got to have more custom foam built, etc. So I don't generally like the idea of custom built cases, unless you do literally have an army which is like, that is finished, I'm never adding to it. Maybe then you can go out and get a specialised case for it. Now, talking of expanding outside of my cases, yes, my big Necron case was filled to the brim and I ran out of room. So I actually had to get another case for them, and at the time I didn't have too much money, so I decided to go down the cheap route, and I looked at KR cases, and I got a 3-tiered case with the cardboard box for about £20. I think they're a bit more expensive now, probably about 25-ish, but it was really good value for money, and I get a lot of miniatures in that case. I have to say, I'm really impressed with that particular case. Now, my case has blue foam in it, and I'm finding that blue foam to be really good. You can actually pick the size of the hole that you want to. For example, if you've got smaller models like my flayed ones, I've actually got smaller holes than the GW one, which is great because it means you can get units of 10 going along. GW cases are units of 9, which is really weird. But yeah, with the KR cases you can do that, and you can actually get different foam trays for the cases. So I thought that was really good, and I was impressed with that. Now, my son got himself a cheap version of KR case, so it's very similar. It's in the cardboard box and it's got the foam trays, and it looks like a KR case, but it's not a KR one. And I have to say, I've looked at that, and the foam itself isn't very good. The bottom's all coming unglued, etc. So obviously there are some cheap cases that aren't maybe so good, but certainly KR cases I've found to be very good. Now, going back to Games Workshop cases, they now have this new case with a different foam inside. And I have one of these cases. I actually won it in a giveaway, and at first I thought, wow, what a fantastic case idea this is. The case is physically smaller, you can get a lot more models in there. Indeed, you can get funny shaped models in there where it sort of stretches out, and it seemed really good. But now, having used that case, I hate it. I think it's the worst case ever designed ever in the world. It's terrible. I hate it, and the reason for that is, although yes, you can get a lot of models in there, they don't fit in very well. The bottom, you lift up the case, you lift up the foam, and the bottom falls down and all the models go down. It's not very good for storing metal models because they all rub against each other. I think it's dreadful. I think it's a dreadful design. Yeah, I really don't like it. I'd love to know what you think of that new Games Workshop case. Let me know in the comments below. I'd really like to hear it, but I think it's awful. And that was the last case that I had. So in conclusion, personally, out of all of the cases I've had, I really like the old Games Workshop cases with the cutouts, but A, they don't do them anymore, and B, they were fairly expensive. And I have now concluded for my future cases that I want to buy is I'm going to buy KR multi cases. I think they're a good case. I've only had one, but I'm very happy with it, and I think they do some higher grade cases as well as the cheaper cardboard ones. The cheaper cardboard ones, I mean, from what I've seen, are very durable. Yes, okay, if you go out and it's raining, you know, maybe not quite so good, but if that was the case, I'll just put it into a black bin bag, you know, to transport it. But I've not really had any issues with that cardboard case. It feels very solid, it's not broken or torn or anything. So for me personally, from my experience, I haven't experienced all of the cases, and there's a lot of different companies out there doing cases, but from my experience, I'm going to stick, I think, with KR multi cases, unless I end up with a good amount of money surplus where I maybe can invest in higher grade cases. So that is what I'm thinking. So I'd love to hear what you think. What's your favourite cases? What's your worst cases you've ever had? Have you had custom built expensive cases? Are they worth it? Let me know in the comments box below. Beam me up.